Superior customer service leads to customer satisfaction and loyalty. Customer service adds value to your products and services. It's essential for repeat customers, sales growth, and sustained profitability. So whether you're operating a farm machinery leasing business, or you're selling supplements for animals, feed, seed, or chemical, satisfied customers are going to determine your company's long-term viability. Let's check out how one business that is affiliated with John Deere values customer service.
Do your homework, do your due diligence, keep an open mind. You're going to choose Aspen.
Well, Dave, we work with Deere on the same project, and that is they will sample our customer purchases and usually new or used equipment. And it's the feedback that we're really after. You know, we want good, positive customer satisfaction results. And what it told us, you know, was the fact that if we really sincerely ask the customer, are you satisfied with your product that we delivered? Is it meeting your needs and doing the job that it was intended for? And we have, you know, a positive customer comment, then we know we've achieved what we were supposed to do, right? And if not, then further assistance has to be rendered by the dealership. And these customer surveys tell us that. And it's most important to us, and we've found that by going out and just following every sale and making sure that they know they're going to get a survey and we want to be sure that they're satisfied, then we know we've done our job. And we always have the salesman ask the question, you know, are you satisfied with your purchase? Has it met the needs that you bought it for? Is there anything else that we can do to serve you? And are you willing to recommend us and our product to somebody else? And if the salesman will do that, which I'm seeing, because some of these scores are coming in today where the dealership experience score is much greater than the product score. And so our buyers are not all farmers. It can be homeowners, you know, who bought a garden tractor or a compact tractor. They're answering the same thing, and we're learning a lot from that. But it tells me that we're doing what we're supposed to do, and so it's been a help to us.
So there's one great example of how customer satisfaction surveys can help a farm equipment company make improvements and continue to meet customers' expectations with their service and products. In this lesson, I'm going to give you some tips for designing good surveys. I'm going to have you recognize 3 visual design elements and 4 visual design properties that you should follow when writing any customer satisfaction survey. And then you're going to recall the different types of questions you can write to measure information about your salesperson, your products or service, and then the customer service. So good survey design motivates respondents to reply. And you need to have an appropriate sequence of questions to create that flow that encourages customers to answer questions. So your opening questions, the first few questions in the survey need to be really easy and interesting. in order to calm any participants' suspicions about the survey's integrity. This allows your participants to build up confidence in the survey objective, and in return, this may even stimulate their interest in overall participation in the survey. Your question flow. After you've established the first general topic, all related questions should come up before a second topic is raised. It's a really good idea to use multiple pages or sections in an online survey to house each different section of the survey. Here's how you can raise one topic on one page and then include the instructions and information for the second in a page description. I'm going to show that to you. And what I want you to also realize is that you may need to think about conditional or skip logic questions as a way to control the respondent's flow or route through their product. And that is applied to a question in the survey when you want to guide respondents to be excluded from them because those questions do not apply to them. Make sure you have that set up in an online survey that they can skip the survey question if it is not relevant to them, or you have offered a not applicable answer choice available for them to select. You need to think about the location of sensitive questions. Some suggest that sensitive questions should not be included at the beginning of a survey. However, there's no set rule on this. If you do include sensitive questions at the beginning of the survey, then you may run into respondents rejecting the survey and exiting early. They may not build up enough confidence in the survey's integrity quite so early. Questions like demographics, income, herd size, acreage, or personal information are usually best to introduce towards the end of the survey. This way, respondents are likely to have already developed confidence in the survey's objective. Before you can write your questions, you need to understand the purpose of your survey and make sure that you're only including relevant questions to your company, to your sales force, and to the products or service that you are offering. Make sure that you adequately communicate what is required of your customers to answer each question. You cannot assume that customers are going to understand questions or the instructions given to them if you do not tell them how to answer those questions. Providing the instructions directly after the question stem can really help ensure your respondents see and process what it is you want them to do before they answer the question. Here's one example. When did you start your studies at Utah State University? That's very vague. If I don't have instructions, I could answer that with a semester and a day, year. I could give a specific month and year. I could give the date that classes started. I could just give a year. So in this, I want people to answer consistently so I can use that information. Please provide your answer using 2 digits for the month and 4 digits for the year. And then I have space for those responses, and it shows them how I want the question written. You do not want to show bias in your questions, so you need to make sure that you state both positive and negative sides in a question stem or word it in a way that you are not showing favoritism for a favorable or unfavorable response. One way I've seen this done is to say, to what extent do you agree or disagree with this statement? It is easier for people to find work in this community than it was about 1 year ago. And you have a scale from strongly agree to strongly disagree. Well, there is a way that you can make this question better. In fact, when you state things like, to what extent do you agree or disagree, that statement becomes pretty lengthy, and we want to avoid that wordiness. So we could say something like, what is your level of agreement with this statement? It's a little shorter, And it's still unbiased because we do not tell them if they need to have a favorable or unfavorable level of agreement. I want you to make sure that you use words and expressions that are simple, direct, and familiar to all respondents. Ask precise questions. Avoid things that are too general, too complex, or undefined. You want to stay away from words like often, usually, generally, always. Those are vague, like often, usually, generally, and it can be interpreted in different ways. We may also want to avoid words that are like too specific, like how many hours have you used the farm machinery, or in the last 30 days, how many times have you done blank? Because that can be hard to remember. And each person's thought process is different, and some people may infer things in a different meaning, often to one person, maybe once or twice a week, and to someone else, it could be a few times a month. We also want to avoid technical jargon or concepts unless we define what those are and we know that our respondents would understand those words. And we want to make sure we use words consistently. So if you're selling a product, you need to use the company's name the same every single time, the product's name the same. The description of the product should be identical and be used throughout the entire survey the same way, because that consistency makes sure they know exactly what they are referring to when they answer those questions. You do not want to use abbreviations, and you need to spell out words when necessary, so it would not lead to potential confusion for the respondents, and they would not know what that acronym means. I also want you to avoid negative or double negative expressions. So the use of universal words like absolute and always and never can really cause the respondents to avoid answering a question. And these tend to extend the questions to an extreme. So in addition, try not to use words such as only or just. These can be perceived as negatively worded by respondents. I also want you to avoid using double-barreled questions. Double-barreled questions split questions into more than one part, idea, or meaning. The answer choice for each part might have separate meanings to the ideas presented within the one question. These may lead the respondents to answer only one aspect of the question, ultimately leading him or her to fail in answering both aspects of the question. So survey questions should always be written in a way that only one thing is being measured. So in a simple question, it has two subjects. It's impossible to tell how the respondent is weighing the different elements included. For example, how do you describe your experience with Agri-Service and Massey Ferguson tractors? You're asking them to describe two things, the experience with Agri-Service and then the experience with Massey Ferguson tractors. If your respondent is not specific in stating which they are measuring in their statement, you will not be able to have that information help you. So the best thing to do is split this question into two. You would first ask, how do you describe your experience with Agri-Service? Then you would ask a question, how do you describe your experience with Massey Ferguson tractors? That way you know specifically what the respondent thinks about their experience with both items. Questions should never be worded in a way that sways the reader to one side of the argument. So usually you can tell a question is leading if it includes non-neutral wording. We don't really want to suggest a certain response and coerce them to answer in a specific way. Here's a poor example. Wouldn't it be great to purchase Anderson Bean boots at Cal Ranch? That's suggesting a certain response that we want them to say it would be great. A better question would be, what boot brands would you like to purchase from Cal Ranch? Then they can openly answer and say Anderson Boots, Ariat, Justin, and that gives them the choice to tell you, and you're not implanting an idea in their head as to what you want them to answer. You also need to ask reliable questions that can be understood, interpreted in the exact same way by all readers, which is why you have to be specific in what you're measuring and make sure you provide instructions. An example of a unreliable question is, where are you from? That could be answered in a number of ways. I could say the United States. I could say Utah. I could say Cache Valley. I could say Logan, Utah, or North Logan. So since you could get a lot of different answers, it would be better to say, in what state do you reside in? Or, in what state did you purchase Smart Pack horse supplements? And then you would be able to narrow that down a bit more and be very specific and give them a drop-down menu of all of the states from where you can answer those questions. I do not want you to ask questions that ask for highly detailed information, because it is unlikely that your respondents will remember that information. For examples, in the past 30 days, how many hours did you spend repairing your water trough? That it would be a lot to calculate, and the time it takes them to calculate it, they may lose interest in your survey, become frustrated, and just exit out or skip that question entirely, so you would not have information. You might give them a drop-down choice and a number of hours, like 1 to 5, 6 to 10, 11 to 15, and that might be easier to let them gauge how many hours they have worked on it without having to calculate for themselves in their head that open-ended question. So just don't ask for a lot of high detail. I also need you to make sure you do mutually exclusive answer choices. This means that the answer choice should not overlap and be available to select in more than one answer choice. So on the left side, you will see a question that says, which of the following best describes your age group? Well, this is not mutually exclusive, because if you look, 25, 35, 45, 55, and 65 are available to select in 2 different answer choices. That would not be good, because you need to have only one answer choice selected for this question. The best way to do it is to make sure that you give all the answers for the questions needed to cover the choices without giving more than one answer in a question. So on the right hand side, we adjusted this scale to say under 21, 21 to 24, 25 to 34, 35 to 44, 45 to 54, 55 to 64, and 65 or older. That solves the issue of and makes sure that you're mutually exclusive. Now, all answers given for a question need to cover the entire realm of possible answers. So survey writers listing answers in a single or multiple response question need to make sure that all of the potential answers to particular questions are listed. And remember, when in doubt, use the other option, please specify. That way you give people the choice to write in an answer that you do not apply. But this will require you to do some brainstorming and do some research and make sure that you have answered those questions, that you're not missing anything that you should ask, and you're offering all of the possible answer choices needed.